early Saturday in the northern Minneapolis suburbs. At the same time, State Senator John Hoffman, also a Democrat, and his wife Yvette were shot and injured about 9 miles away. We go to the Middle East next. Bloomberg has learned that President Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It's unclear if Trump personally delivered the message, waving Israel off a possible assassination attempt. Now, U.S. officials have been in close contact with Israeli officials ever since Israel launched a series of missile and drone strikes on Iran. Tonight, President Trump said the U.S. will continue to support Israel.
I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out. But we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
That was President Trump speaking to reporters earlier, and we got reaction from William Roebuck. He is former U.S. ambassador to Bahrain.
My assessment right now is that the U.S. is keeping its options open. I believe, given their previous push for a diplomatic settlement, their preference would be to get back to a negotiated settlement. But in some ways, I think the U.S. approach so far has been they want to have their diplomatic cake and eat it too, so to speak, with the negotiations with Iran and also supporting Israel's approach.
That was William Roebuck, former U.S. ambassador to Bahrain. Now, the price of crude oil has soared. This is after Israeli strikes over the weekend on Iranian energy assets. Brent crude, the global benchmark, was up as much as 5.5% when trading began at 6 p.m. Wall Street time. We got reaction from Stephen Shork. He is the president and founder of the Shork Group.
When we look at the price of Brent crude oil in the futures market, which is a proxy for the global price.
Hello everyone, good morning to all of you. Welcome once again to this live analysis. स्टार्ट करते हैं फिलहाल के लिए क्रूड ऑयल और नेचुरल गैस को देखोगे दोनों ही क्रूड ऑयल तो फ्लैट ओपन हुआ है, नेचुरल गैस थोड़ा सा गैप अप ओपन हुआ है. नीचे अगर वापस आता है तो एक बाइंग का ट्रेड यहाँ पर वापस प्लान करना. बाकी और नीचे आएगा तो लोअर एंड पे हमारे पास यहाँ पर एक सपोर्ट है, परसों का लो नया सपोर्ट बन गया है. दिस इज ऑल्सो सपोर्ट. ऊपर एक मेजर रेजिस्टेंस आपको देखने के लिए मिलेगा 15 मिनट टाइम फ्रेम पर अबाउट 330 320 के आसपास. ये भी एक रेजिस्टेंस है, थोड़ा वीक है लेकिन ये तो यहाँ पर थोड़ी क्वांटिटी कमी रखना सेलिंग करते वक्त. थोड़ा सा वीक रेजिस्टेंस है, ब्रेक हो सकता है इजीली. तो इसको मैं लिख देता हूँ यहाँ पर, ये दिस इज अ वीक रेजिस्टेंस जोन. ठीक है, दिस इज अ वीक रेजिस्टेंस जोन. रेजिस्टेंस है जरूर, थोड़ा वीक है बट इसलिए ज़्यादा इसमें क्वांटिटी लेना मत यहाँ पे. ओके, नीचे आएगा तो वापस बाइंग करें. ऑलरेडी फर्स्ट कैंडल वहाँ से थोड़ा सा सपोर्ट लेके और चली गई है ऑलरेडी, तो ज़्यादा रिस्क मत लेना. वीक है थोड़ा सा रेजिस्टेंस, ठीक है. ज़्यादा रिस्क लोगे तो प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी. भाई क्रूड ऑयल में परसों की लेवल है, थोड़ी बहुत बाइंग आई थी ऊपर. रेजिस्टेंस है अभी भी, जब तक ब्रेकआउट नहीं होता तो इट इज स्टिल रेजिस्टेंस. नीचे का सपोर्ट मल्टीपल टाइम टेस्ट हो गया है तो उसको आप कंसिडर करना मत. एंड नीचे अगर इसके नीचे वैसे आया तो और डाउन जाने के चांसेस थोड़े रहेंगे. बाकी देखो, ईरान इजराइल पे ध्यान रखना, वहाँ से काफ़ी न्यूज आ रही है. इजराइल कंटिन्यूसली हिट कर रहा है, फिर उसके अलावा ईरान भी मिसाइल से हिट कर रहा है एक दूसरे को. सो वो न्यूज़ इम्पैक्ट डाल सकती है ओवरऑल प्राइस पर. बाकी डेटा की बात करें तो आज एक डेटा है, इम्पैक्ट करेगा एम्पायर स्टेट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडेक्स का, गोल्ड और सिल्वर को. उसका भी थोड़ा ध्यान रखियो. बाकी और कोई न्यूज़ वगैरह आती है तो वी विल सी दैट. Option attract bulls in heavy trade at my Middle East risk expand. कि ये 5700 क्रूड ऑयल में ये एक सपोर्ट है नेक्स्ट.
Today we expect more from technology. Companies making the biggest productivity gains aren't just adding more tools, they're choosing integrated solutions. Find out more about these solutions later in this podcast.
News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Doug Krisner. We begin in Minnesota, where the man suspected of shooting two state lawmakers, killing one of them, has been taken into custody. The Associated Press says Vance Bolter was arrested Sunday evening. The arrest was confirmed to the AP by a law enforcement official who did not publicly discuss details of this ongoing investigation. It was former Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, who were killed at their home early Saturday in the northern Minneapolis suburbs. At the same time, State Senator John Hoffman, also a Democrat, and his wife Yvette were shot and injured about 9 miles away. We go to the Middle East next. Bloomberg has learned that President Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It's unclear if Trump personally delivered the message, waving Israel off a possible assassination attempt. Now, U.S. officials have been in close contact with Israeli officials ever since Israel launched a series of missile and drone strikes on Iran. Tonight, President Trump said the U.S. will continue to support Israel.
I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out. But we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
That was President Trump speaking to reporters earlier, and we got reaction from William Roebuck. He is former U.S. ambassador to Bahrain.
My assessment right now is that the U.S. is keeping its options open. I believe, given their previous push for a diplomatic settlement, their preference would be to get back to a negotiated settlement. But in some ways, I think the U.S. approach so far has been they want to have their diplomatic cake and eat it too, so to speak, with the negotiations with Iran and also supporting Israel's approach.
That was William Roebuck, former U.S. ambassador to Bahrain. Now, the price of crude oil has soared. This is after Israeli strikes over the weekend on Iranian energy assets. Brent crude, the global benchmark, was up as much as 5.5% when trading began at 6 p.m. Wall Street time. We got reaction from Stephen Schork. He is the president and founder of the Schork Group.
When we look at the price of Brent crude oil in the futures market, which is a proxy for the global price market, for the global price, we had at this point coming into this quarter a 5% probability that NYMEX WTI, which is the U.S. market, could trade above $111. And that was based on the fundamentals and the volatility of our algorithms recognized coming into the quarter. For Brent crude oil, that would mean 5% probability of about $114, $115 a barrel. That is in the here and the now.
That was Stephen Schork, president and founder of the Schork Group. Randi Weingarten has reportedly resigned from the Democratic National Committee. She was a longtime leader of one of the nation's most influential teachers' unions and a major voice in Democratic politics. The New York Times reports Weingarten pointed to disagreements with the DNC's new chairman, Ken Martin. In a letter to Martin, Weingarten wrote, "I appear to be out of step with the leadership you are forging." So we have a holiday-shortened week in the States, a Fed meeting, and some earnings as well. A preview now from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
It's all about the outlook. Victoria Fernandez is chief market strategist at Crossmark Global.
So expectations have come down for the second quarter. I think the key is going to be, do we see that continue for the third and the fourth quarter to the point that we're getting into low single or mid-single digit growth expectations?
We'll be hearing from companies across a range of industries, including Accenture, Darden Restaurants, Kroger, and Lennar. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
We go to sports next. The U.S. Open at the Oakmont Country Club in Pennsylvania has ended. J.J. Spawn was able to overcome 5 early bogeys to win. And that is News When You Want It with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Doug Krisner, and this is Bloomberg.
Remember when a single technology glitch could bring an entire workday to a standstill? I'm Mark Banfield, Chief Commercial Officer at TeamViewer. Today, most technical issues are recurring. If you know the patterns, these issues can be remediated before they impact your business. One major UK retailer discovered a single point of sale outage cost them around $1 million in lost sales during a single lunchtime. Now, using TeamViewer's digital workplace platform, the same company is able to identify and fix those issues before they even happen. But proactive troubleshooting isn't just about the incremental improvements. It's about fundamentally reimagining how work happens for everyone. And the companies that move first get competitive advantages in terms of efficiency, productivity, and innovation. To find out more, visit bloomberg.com/TeamViewer.
The data that matters for your investments.
The entire auto sector is higher today.
And analysis on the companies making news on Wall Street.
Tesla's been a stock that's been in focus.
Shares have really been all over the map this morning.
Listen to the Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg.
Let's talk about some other decliners.
It's your short audio report on the day's winners and losers in the stock market.
Second biggest driver in terms of points for the S&P 500.
Subscribe to the Stock Movers Report on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
This is an iHeart podcast.
Progress never stops. Neither should you. At PwC
back here, as I said, you've got slowing expectations, but for 2026 it's an upward tick on growth. So it's 2025 that gets a little bit lower, below the 2% handle, but in 26 the projections are again for growth to go up. And when you're looking at other data, whether you're looking at the performance of industrials, again it's been very positive this year. If you're looking at the rhetoric of companies, what they're not talking about any slowdown in growth or any lack of consumption. So the Fed has a mixed picture to look at, and of course some pressure from President Trump.
Just to round it up, given the geopolitical risk and how much it's centered on right now the Middle East region, the potential for the U.S. to get involved, so there's always that element as a knock-on effect. Does that put Asian markets, investment opportunities in a better light, just purely from a geopolitical perspective? Do you want to get exposure to China?
Absolutely. We are neutral China only for the reason that we have not seen absolute transparency there. But what we are seeing is the earnings yield for China is going up. Any domestic economy is going to do well this year on two factors. One is they're not that affected by trade tariffs. Number two, they're not so affected by any disruption in trade because of what's happening geopolitically. Hence, Asian economies are largely domestic, and which is why we do see some uptick and a preference.
Anita, always good to chat to you, especially on a day like this. Anita Krishnagupta, CIO at WealthBricks Capital Partners. Coming up, East African finance chiefs are boosting their planned spending to sustain economic growth and mitigate the effects of geopolitical risks. Details next. This is Bloomberg.
Progress never stops. Neither should you. At PwC, we make sure you're ready for what's next, with the expertise and technology you need to outthink and outperform. We're with you, sleeves rolled up, start to finish, so you can stay ahead, so you can protect what you built, so you can create new value. We build for what's next, so you can get there now. PwC, so you can.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, Mondays on Bloomberg.
The circuit is back. How confident are you that AI's promise will outweigh the perils?
I'm not confident.
Tune into Season 3 of The Circuit with me, Emily Chang, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Originals and Bloomberg TV.
People ask me all the time, what is the key to being a really good investor? And I tell them it's to surround yourself with and work with the best investors you can find. On Bloomberg Wealth, I'm going to take you to meet the greatest investors in the world, the people that I would like to have managing my money.
It's 100 years, 80 years, 100 years of dollar strength, so much so that important commodities, gold, oil, are denominated in dollars. I think undoing that will take a long, long time.
We're at the epicenter of a global realignment on a scale not seen for decades. At the intersection between markets, economics, and geopolitics, a forum for sophisticated conversation. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Jumana Bersachi in Dubai. East African finance chiefs have increased planned spending to a record to sustain economic growth and mitigate the effects of geopolitical risks and cuts in foreign aid. For more, Bloomberg's Andiro Ganga joins us now from Kigali, Rwanda. Andiro, why are we seeing these changes to the government spending plans and an increased amount of money that is set aside for these budgets that seem to be getting bigger?
Jumana, so all the 4 finance ministers were in agreement that weren't they need to spur economic growth in the region. Growth has been a little bit slow than they had projected, with the exception of Rwanda that has been growing slightly faster than their peers. And also, international risks are beginning to unfold locally. You have geopolitical tension, trade wars, Trump tariffs, and they're just trying to ensure that they insulate their economies right before they begin to feel the impact of this. And all the 4 countries plan to increase spending by $5.5 billion across the next 12 months. Rwanda is planning to increase spending by 21%. A large chunk of that money will go into building the Bugesera International Airport and also expanding the national airline. Kenya's budget, $33 billion, which will increase budget deficit to about 4.8% from 4.5%. And you also have Uganda, ambitious budget, $20 billion, and Tanzania, $21 billion. And what will be interesting is the approach that all countries are taking to raise revenue. You have Tanzania that announced plans to mandate mining companies in the country to trade and refine at least 20% of their total gold output in the country. And Uganda is looking for revenue influx from coffee, cocoa, and also gold. But interestingly, they will be getting access to World Bank funding after they had been previously frozen out due to their harsh anti-LGBTQ laws. So this is some of the ways that they're going to raise revenue. Growth projections a little bit moderate at 5 to 7%. But then again, the risks still remain, and they'll be watching out for those.
Ondiro, it's interesting to know that they're also allocating a lot more to health. Walk us through why.
Jumana, yet again, the effects of scaled back funding from global partners is beginning to unfold. Tens of thousands of healthcare workers have lost their jobs. Critical programs and institutional memory could be in jeopardy, and 17 million people who live with HIV on the African continent could lose access to life-saving medication. And that is why we're seeing most of these African countries ramping up their resources and pumping money into the healthcare system, because experts are warning that if the intervention is not swift and targeted, then the continent risks losing all the efforts that it has put in place to mitigate HIV and AIDS-related deaths. You have a country like Uganda that has earmarked $32 billion. Tanzania is also disbursed a little bit of that amount, about $31.8 billion. And Kenya will be giving $134 million to Global Fund to fight HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria on the continent.
Bloomberg's Ondiro Ganga in Kigali, Rwanda. Thank you so much for the report. And coming up, the IAEA says Israeli airstrikes damaged a key Iranian nuclear facility. We look at what this means for Iran's nuclear program. All that discussion next. This is Bloomberg.
Progress never stops. Neither should you. At PwC, we make sure you're ready for what's next, with the expertise and technology you need to outthink and outperform. We're with you, sleeves rolled up, start to finish, so you can stay ahead, so you can protect what you built, so you can create new value. We build for what's next, so you can get there now. PwC, so you can.
In case you missed it on the opening trade.
I think we could go to say 140. That's the type of 140. 140, absolutely. That's
We're
the
at 114 right now.
Well, 114, yeah, it's 114.
That's why I had to check.
Yes.
This is the scale of moves.
Over what time frame?
This could be within 1 or 2 years. That's the type of scale.
Fast.
That's fast, absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you look at how fast the dollar fell from 2002 to 2004, it was similarly large as this. For me, it's not out of the realms of possibility.
So I'm just sitting here with my jaw slightly open. 140, I can't quite get.
Yeah.
So take us to the US economy. I mean, does the underlying state of the US economy matter in that trade? It seems as if interest rate differentials and the state of the US economy may be pushed to the sideline by this broader big picture narrative that you described.
Absolutely, yeah. The normal cyclical dynamics, much less important with this type of structural change.
Don't miss the opening trade live every weekday.
In case you missed it on the Pulse.
Well, there's no doubt that the USAID payment cutoffs that Elon drove have resulted in dramatic increase in child to death and children that would have been protected from getting HIV from their mothers during birth, that money's been cut off.
Don't miss the Pulse, live every weekday.
Our global headquarters in New York, I'm Danny Berger. Welcome to Bloomberg Brief. Let's set your agenda.
Bloomberg Brief delivers the market news, data, and analysis you need live every weekday only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. Get your fixed income fix. Watch Bloomberg Real Yield every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
Good morning. This is Horizons Middle East and Africa. Our top stories this morning. Oil and gas prices rise again as Israel and Iran continue their attacks on each other, with the market bracing for any disruption in supply. President Trump vetoes an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, but says it is possible the U.S. could get involved in the conflict. It's just gone 8:30 a.m. across the Emirates. I'm Jumana Bersachi in Dubai, keeping you up to speed with all of the developments over the last couple of days, and indeed an intensification of strikes and counter-strikes between Iran and Israel. Though today the reaction in markets is a lot more subdued than what we had on Friday. But let me just take you to some of the local markets. This was the close. The Egyptian index closing down 4.6% yesterday. It opened down 7% weaker. Interestingly enough, the Tel Aviv stock index actually closed marginally in the green, up 0.5%, though some of these other indices, the Tadawul in Saudi Arabia down 1%, Qatari index down 3.2% as well. So this tells you that many of the regional bourses have also been reacting. No surprise that the reaction has been negative once open for trading yesterday. They are open for trade on Sunday, of course. Flipping over global markets, and you can see that today mood is somewhat more subdued. So we've got S&P futures basically trading flat, up about 0.1%. USD, some money is going into the green haven on back of a flight to safety in these times of heightened geopolitical stress. Brent, you can see, also up 1.2% today, just above $75, and this after a massive jump in the price of spot on Friday, with 1 point Brent trading around 12% higher, ending the day about 6% higher. For the week, 13% higher. Concerns about whether the scope of the attacks from both sides could spread more and more into energy infrastructure, and of course the Strait of Hormuz has been a focus. And then gold getting close to all-time highs once again, 3,430. We are up for the week around 3%, so very close to 3,500. All right, let's talk about the handover from Asian markets as well. Avril Hong is in our Singapore studio. Avril, walk us through the reaction and handover from these Asian bourses today, please.
Yeah, Jumana, Asia stocks are flat as investors weigh out the extension of Iran-Israel hostilities, but also highlighting what we're seeing in the FX space. We saw initially, after the conflict broke out, the yen catching a safe haven bid, but it's since been weakening along with the jump in oil prices. Remember, the Japanese are net importers of the commodity, and we have the likes of Nomura highlighting that we could see, if the conflict worsens, the Japanese currency falling to as low as 147 against the greenback. Also keep in mind that when it comes to the renminbi, yes, if you're looking at the CFET's basket, that is the other major currencies that the Chinese yuan is tracked against, it clocked a decline for the week. But we also had those signals from the PBOC today that dollar yuan fixed below the 718 handle, I should say, which signals that even amid all these oil market gyrations, they want to keep the currency stable. That's the message they're sending to FX traders. Jumana.
Avril, thank you so much. Avril Hong in Singapore. Now, Israeli airstrikes have damaged a key Iranian nuclear facility, likely setting back Iran's uranium fuel cycle by months. The UN atomic watchdog says the strikes against the facility at Isfahan resulted in serious damage. For more, let's bring in Jonathan Tyrone, Bloomberg's atomic diplomacy reporter. Jonathan, I think all of us are trying to get our head around the various nuclear facilities and sites within Iran. But let's just talk about the damage leveled at the Isfahan facility. There have also been attacks on Natanz as well. How much of a setback does this constitute for Iran's nuclear ambitions?
Well, it's a very serious one. Everybody likes to talk about uranium enrichment. That's the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle. But what people have to understand is this is a vast industrial enterprise involving dozens of different sites. And whereas Iran has multiple enrichment sites, it only has one conversion site. This is the place where raw uranium is taken. It's injected with fluorine in highly specialized blast furnaces. It's a very complicated and corrosive industry. And without that feedstock, the so-called uranium hexafluoride gas that's enriched, Iran has a limited feedstock now of uranium that can be further enriched for nuclear fuel. So this is the first significant setback, we could say, for the Iran nuclear program. It will take months, at the very least, to repair.
What about the Fordo nuclear site? Because as we understand, that one is heavily buttressed by walls, very difficult to get to. And in that case, for Israel to sustain or actually to execute a significant amount of damage, you would actually need to see cluster bombs. So what do you think is the likelihood that actually the more deeper embedded uranium enrichment sites will be harmed in these attacks?
Well, attacking Fordo with cluster munitions is impossible. It's buried a half a kilometer beneath a mountain. We've even seen in Natanz, which is a much easier fortified site to attack. That's only 40 meters underground, reinforced with steel and concrete. Israel has not been able to breach the primary containment for those enrichment hulls. So the further down you go, the more difficult it becomes. Fordo is a whole different order of magnitude, and it's highly unlikely that with the kinds of munitions that we've seen so far, Israel is going to be capable of penetrating that deep below. And it's not just the factor of interrupting the enrichment at that point. It's also a matter of the stockpile, because that's where the 60% stockpile of highly enriched uranium resides. Iran announced yesterday that it was curtailing information sharing with the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, whose inspectors remain in Tehran. So, this is a conflict that has significant way to escalate.
Jonathan, we'll leave it there. Bloomberg's Jonathan Tyrone, thank you for getting us up to speed on some of the action that has been taken on those nuclear sites. Let's bring in Dr. Mir Javedanfar, Iranian-Israeli lecturer at Reichman University. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. I know you are in Tel Aviv, very sensitive times. Let's just take a step back and talk about the attack that Israel conducted on Iran early on Friday morning. We now understand it had been months in terms of preparation for that operation. What is the objective of these attacks? Is it to ensure that Iran doesn't develop a nuclear bomb, as we were just talking about with my colleague, or is it one step further and the real possibility of regime change in Iran?
I think there are at least two major strategic objectives that are also very realistic for the state of Israel that its leadership is following in Iran. In order of importance, the second most important strategic objective is to exact a very heavy price from Iran by attacking military sites, economic sites, and nuclear sites, and also by attacking and eliminating the leadership level of all these industries, and of course attacking energy infrastructure, in order to deter Iran from the continuation of its anti-Israel policies. Jumana, I'd like to remind your viewers that since 1991, the Islamic Republic of Iran, just before the Madrid Peace Conference, declared proxy war against the State of Israel and stated that it's willing to help anybody who wants to torpedo the peace process. Since then, we've seen before October 7th, more than 1,000 Israelis killed in buses and cafes by Iranian proxies. Therefore, and then the situation got far worse after October 7th. So one of the goals is to exact such a heavy price that Iran will change its policies in the future because of the costs that they carry. The first and most important strategic objective is to force Iran to accept President Trump's terms for the nuclear agreement, which Iran has not until now. And the most important term is the complete disintegration of Iran's enrichment program.
Okay, so let me just ask you about that last point, the complete disintegration of the nuclear program. I was just speaking to our colleague now who was saying that, one of the main nuclear enrichment sites in Faro, you can only get there by using bunker buster bombs, and that would entail U.S. involvement. Is Israel therefore relying on the U.S. to finish the job, so to speak?
I think in an ideal world, yes, but realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is a partnership between Israel and the U.S. where the United States gave the permission for such an attack. This was fully coordinated with the Americans, but it's Israel that's doing the military work, not the Americans. President Trump does not seem to wish to, at least for the moment, to risk the lives of U.S. service personnel. So this is a situation. This is an undertaking by Israel, but the goal is, if Israel, by through these attacks and the price that they carry, convinces the Islamic Republic to accept President Trump's nuclear agreement, then these sites will be dismantled, and perhaps Israel won't even have to attack them, because once you reach an agreement, you can send inspectors, you can send specialists to these sites, and you can dismantle the centrifuges and all the infrastructure that is involved.
Can I ask you how much of the timing is coincidental with domestic politics and the fact that the Prime Minister himself, Netanyahu, was getting very close to perhaps losing his seat in a vote that took place on Thursday last week? The same evening, of course, Israel then conducted those strikes. How much of this is about Netanyahu ensuring his own political survival and launching yet another front in this regional war?
That's a very good question. Yes, Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing very badly in the polls. And of course, in his legacy so far, he has the terrible tragedy of October 7th happen under his premiership. There's a lot of opposition in Israel. Every weekend, there are massive demonstrations against the policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu. But Jumana, when it comes to the threat posed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, the state of Israel is united. The opposition is united, standing behind the Prime Minister. Because this is a war that the Islamic Republic imposed on us, not the other way around. Since 1991, the Iranian regime has been paying different groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Jihad Islami, to kill Israelis. 2 days after the October 7th massacre, Ayatollah Khamenei praised those who carried it out by stating that the arms and the forehead of its planners should be kissed. Then he invited the Hamas leadership. This is a threat that is one of the issues that is bipartisan in the state of Israel. And these days, there are very few issues that are bipartisan. And one of them is the threat posed by the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Dr. Mir Javedanfar, really good to have you on the show today. Thank you for bringing in your perspectives. Iranian-Israeli lecturer at Reichman University. Thank you. And coming up, UAE luxury real estate developer Bin Ghati launches an asset management arm. Chairman Ahmed Bin Ghati joins us next. This is Bloomberg.
The top names in business are on Bloomberg.
We view the tariff situation as something that will be resolved over the next 6 to 9 months. Even if you end up with a base level of 10%, divide 10% up 3 ways, it doesn't have a huge impact on inflation in terms of global growth. It's something the world can absorb.
Nobody covers business like Bloomberg.
Middle East and Africa. Vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. Join me on Horizons Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insight from this exciting region. Now weekdays, only on Bloomberg.
Bloomberg loves earnings.
I know it's like your Super Bowl, right?
I can't wait. It's like opening presents in the morning.
All right, it will be exciting.
Nobody covers earnings like Bloomberg.
Welcome back to Horizons Middle East and Africa. I'm Joanna Versace in Dubai. UAE luxury real estate developer Banknifty has launched an asset management firm with the aim of managing $1 billion worth of private credit and real estate strategies. The new Banknifty capital is based at the Dubai International Financial Center, DIFC, and its chairman, Ahmed Banknifty, joins me right now. Good to have you with us on the show. The asset management firm plans to target about $1 billion in private credit and real estate strategies. These are Sharia compliant. Why did you launch Banknifty Capital? What's the purpose of the funds?
So we wanted to obviously diversify capital sources. And the aim is to create a product offering of around $1 billion. It's also to give people access to the Banknifty story and also enhance liquidity and access to alternative sources of capital for the real estate supply chain. And, finally, we like to think of ourselves as a key player in the real estate sector in Dubai. So we like to think that we're obviously doing something to achieve the or participating in achieving the Dubai Economic Agenda 2033, which aims to reach 1 trillion dirhams in real estate transactions.
What sort of investors are you targeting to invest in this fund?
So obviously we're regulated by the DFSA. So the kind of investors that we're looking to attract are qualified investors. I would say investors like institutional investors, high net worth individuals, as well as family offices.
Do you have any plans to launch a REIT? We know that Dubai Holding recently launched one. Is that something that you would aspire to do as well?
I think for the time being, we are launching things to do with real estate and private credit strategies. A REIT per se, I can't comment on it right now, but I think for the time being, it's more classical forms of or strategies to do with a classic private equity style.
So, what are some of the best? What are some of those opportunities that you see the best opportunities in this space?
Well, from our conversations with investors, we've gauged very, very increased interest in private credit. That's a very nascent asset class in the region, so there's particular interest in that. That's something that we'll be focused on very much going forward, and also more traditional forms of strategies or vehicles, let me put it this way.
Yeah, I guess people would be asking why a real estate company or luxury real estate company might have an edge in private credit when there are so many other players involved as well. What is your response to that?
So obviously being one of the forefront developers in the real estate sector in Dubai, that kind of exposure gives you a lot of, let's say, unique experience and insight into the real estate sector. And that places us at an advantageous position to know where the value lies in the supply chain, whether it's, construction companies or key suppliers or property management companies. We're probably the best position to know where the value arises, and so when we're taking those decisions on where to allocate or deploy the funds, we know, we're at a really good position to know where or which of those companies is best to invest in.
Yeah, and you say the real estate property developer, but of course it's luxury. Your focus has been on luxury. And can I just ask you how you see the market from here? Because we're hearing of signs that things are beginning to soften. Are you seeing that actually translate?
No, not really. I mean, I think one very important distinguishing, feature that one must make when it comes to supply. I mean, there's always talk of, is there oversupply? But people fail to look at supply in terms of theoretical supply and realistic supply. Theoretical supply being, the announcement of projects. It's always easy to announce projects, but in reality, to come and execute those projects is a lot more difficult. So I think that the realistic supply is still lagging behind the theoretical supply. I mean, in addition, I think the fundamentals are very strong still in Dubai. We know that we have a projected 4.6% compound annual growth rate when we're talking about the population over the next 15 years. Dubai continues to attract millionaires and the affluent from across the world. Only in 2024, 6,700 millionaires settled in Dubai. What's very, very positive and encouraging also is the